In continuation to yesterday's topic, the establishment of the Mughal Empire, wherein we had discussed about the contribution of Babur for the establishment of the Mughal Empire. Today we will focus on Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah Suri happens to be one of the most important rulers in medieval India. He was also important from the point of view that he brought back the Afghan power from the hands of the Mughals, namely Babur. As we had made a note in the beginning, there was an intense conflict between Rajputs, Mughals, and Afghans. The success story of Sher Shah Suri speaks of the success of Afghan elements over the Turkish elements. As we try to identify the relative importance of rulers in medieval India, Sher Shah Suri happens to be a very important ruler, not only for his political contribution, but for bringing about some basic changes in the Indian administrative structure on which the Mughal superstructure was built. For example, if we take, he was the first person after the downfall of Delhi Sultanate to bring about a centralized administration, a structure for centralized administration. Similarly, he was the first person to have come up with a systematic revenue policy. He is also credited with having a systematic religious policy, and he is also applauded for the fact that he was a person who said, when you differ with respect, not with contempt. Sher Shah Suri is credited about bringing a change in the attitude of the Muslim rulers in India towards the Hindu subjects. Unlike in the Delhi Sultanate period, which was a non-benevolent state, Sher Shah Suri turned the early medieval state into a benevolent state. Though he was a staunch Sunni Muslim, he did not depend on the primary sources of Islamic law for his administrative needs. This was one idea, in fact, which was taken in toto by Akbar and endorsed as a religious policy for the Mughals. So when we look at Sher Shah Suri's period, we have certain amount of information which are available in the sources which prove that he was a very successful administrator. So when we are discussing about Sher Shah Suri, we will have to identify the important features of his administration. And Sher Shah Suri is more revered for his administrative skills than his political contribution. Sher Shah Suri was a benevolent ruler and one of the greatest administrators in medieval India. He introduced many reforms, and on the basis of these reforms, Akbar built the superstructure for the Mughal dynasty. If we look at the map of Sher Shah, where you can see that almost from the borders of Gujarat to the borders of Bengal, the entire of North India becomes a part of the Suri Empire. This was a very vast empire in the medieval times. Seshasur divided his empire into 47 divisions and called them as sarkars. And those were again subdivided into smaller administrative units called parganas. So when you look at the map, the empire which you can see was divided into sarkars, was subdivided into parganas. So this was a kind of division which was done for administrative convenience. And why Seshasur becomes an important for his administrative skills is basically because of the fact that he was able to knit the entire region, which you see in the green portion, with an indigenous local administrative network. This was an important development. And this network slowly, when you come down to the times of Mughal period, contributed for the development of a centralized administrative network. The building of an empire involves three phases. The first phase, you have political expansion. In the second phase, you have socio-economic integration. And in the third phase, you have cultural development. Unfortunately, Seshasur ruled for a period of only 5 years. Within this short period of 5 years, he was able to integrate the administration through extending administrative controls from Delhi to the rest of India, where he divided the empire into sarkars and parganas, and the flow of authority and power was centralized, though we have a decentralized administrative structure. This is where the administration of Seshasur becomes important. Now, when we try to look at how he had organized the administration, we can see very clearly that it was the central administration had different offices, which we call the central administration, of which the king was the most important, and he was known as the Sultan. Sher, like all medieval sultans, concentrated the government powers concentrated the government powers in his own hands. He appointed officials who looked into different departments of the government for his administrative conveniences. So, when you're trying to understand the administration of Seshasur, the centralized power was the Sultan himself or the king. All medieval forms of governments have been monarchical forms of government, and all medieval forms of societies have been feudal societies. So, Seshasur is credited with the development of a centralized power which was going to defend the feudal structures in this vast region which you see in the empire. When we look at it, the central administration, I have mentioned a few here. We have the Diwan-e-Wazarat or the Wazir, whom was in charge of revenue and finance. He was one of the most important ministers, or we can say that he was a chief consultant of the king. The second most important department which we can take into consideration happens to be the Diwan-i-Aris. The Diwan-i-Aris was basically defending the foreign policy where any kind of aggression on the newly established kingdom was defended through a very well efficiently managed army. So the Diwan-i-Aris was in charge of defending the kingdom, not only defending the kingdom, but it was also given the importance of expanding the empire. So you have Diwan-i-Wazarat, which was in charge of revenue and finance. You have Diwan-i-Aris, which was in charge of army, which used to take the defense and expansionist policy of the Sood Empire. Next important ministry was the Diwan-i-Risalat. Diwan-i-Risalat, he used to maintain the foreign, in the modern context, we can say the foreign minister or the international relations with the neighboring kingdoms. He used to apprise the king on the kind of relations, whether they were trade or any other forms of communication, to the king and apprise him time and again about the changes that they were supposed to bring about. The fourth important ministry that you find in central administration is Diwan-i-Insha, or the Minister for Communications. Here, when I say communications, I mean communications with regard to the development of infrastructure. Here, when I say infrastructure, I mean the development of roads, buildings, etc. I would like to show you one important slide here, one important slide which we call the Grand Trunk Road, which you can see in this slide from Kabul down to Chittagong, somewhere in Afghanistan down to Chittagong. He was successful in building up the road. And you can see that there were several urban centers which have developed all along this road. So the Ministry of Infrastructure was a very important department which not only contributed for the development of infrastructure, but also contributed for a kind of urbanization, nascent urbanization, which flourished during the times of Akbar. Now going into the details of the administration of Sheshasur, which has been a forerunner to the administration of the Mughals. We have discussed about 3 or 4 points. After the 3 or 4 points, we will have to see how he organized army, how he organized revenue, how he organized income and expenditure, and other aspects. So now, taking his army into consideration, like Alauddin Khilji of the Delhi Sultanate, Sheshasur also maintained a standing army. His army consisted of 4 wings, namely cavalry, infantry, elephants, and artillery. The practice of maintaining the list of soldiers existed, a descriptive roles. All the soldiers' descriptive roles were maintained. This used to help the Sultan in identifying his army. The practice of branding the horses also. The practice of maintaining descriptive roles of soldiers and the practice of branding horses was also there. This practice is a very important practice. The reason is because horses were one of the main force on which the expansion of not only Delhi Sultanate but the Mughal Empire also depended. So Sheshasur also depended on the strength of his horses. So the army was a very important factor in the defense policy, and the practice of branding the horses was also equally important, and maintenance of descriptive roles of the soldiers. So this way he used to keep his army in a very well attentive position. On demand, whenever needed, it could come into action. So after taking the defense into consideration, he concentrated on the income and expenditure. The main sources of income were land revenue, 1, tax on trade, 2, and khams, that is 1/5 of the grain from war. Khams was, it was something like war booty. It was 1/5 of the booty. The areas which were defeated, they were ransacked, and whatever the amount that was given, 1/5 of it was taken as a tax. So the main items of expenditure were the army, wars, continuous wars, civilian salaries for civilians, staff, maintenance of royal household. So you have 3-4 areas from where the income is coming, and you have about 4 to 5 areas where the income is going. So it had to be a very efficiently managed administrative network which had to be developed by Sheshasur to defend the empire politically and to integrate the socio-economic causes and contribute for the economic development of the Sur dynasty. So after looking into the income and expenditure, we will take a look into the revenue administration. Land revenue was the chief source of income because it was a feudal society, and most of the income was coming from land. The agrarian economy becomes a very important source. So taxes on agriculture was an important source, and these taxes at times were paid in cash and at times were paid in kind. So to systematize this land administration, Sheshasur for the first time introduced twin principles of welfare for the farmers. He introduced twin principles of welfare, and that is the reason we call this as a benevolent state. And the first one was the income should be uninterrupted for the government. His system of revenue administration was one of the best in the medieval period. The following are some of the important features of Seshasur's land revenue administration. The first point was land was categorized into 3 categories on the basis of produce from the land. Whatever the amount of cultivation, based on that cultivation, land classification was done. In the second method, land was measured according to a uniform system. In the third system, 1/3 of the produce was collected as tax. So based on the produce of the land and in accordance to the basic facilities that the land had, like annual rainfall or proximity of rivers or canals or any other factor which would increase the income. So certain factors, such factors were taken into consideration for the development of a systematic or uniform tax structure in the medieval Indian context. As I said, tax was sometimes collected in the form of cash, and sometimes it was collected in the form of kind. Kind means produce. Suppose if you are not able to pay in form of cash, if 100 bags are produced, if tax was around 30 bags, you could give 30 bags of grain to the king. So this was a systematic method. There wasn't any kind of a pressure that was put on the people. This indicates that Seshasur was concentrating on the development of the land, increase in production, and the welfare of the farmers. As I said in the earlier time, that this is the basic reason why the state that was developed by Seshasur happens to be a benevolent state. When you are trying to increase the agricultural produce, when you are trying to take care of the welfare measures of the farmers, you are not only focusing on the expansionist policy of the state, but you are also focusing on the welfare and development of the state. So this was a major change in the medieval state. The Delhi Sultanate state was not like this. The Delhi Sultanate state was a theocratic, non-benevolent state. The only policy it had was expansionist, as some of the historians have described the Delhi Sultanate state as a military camp in operation. Unlike that, you can find a drastic change in the administration of Seshasur, where while expanding his empire to the maximum extent possible, he was also focusing on land, taxation, welfare measures of the people. So this was a major change. And administering the officials. See, these are some of the welfare measures that we are talking of, and a kind of systematization of the land revenue. But the officials had to be taken care of in terms of non-corruption, in terms of paying them salaries, etc. So we will just also try to see how he was able to control the officialdom, or what you call the bureaucracy. The Sultan issued instructions. Okay, he issued instructions to all the revenue officials that generosity can be shown at the time of fixing of the revenue, and once it was fixed, it should be strictly collected. So the officials were given a kind of freedom which would allowed them to fix the tax. But once you fix the tax, it had to be collected. It had to be scrupulously collected. This was a very important factor, because only then the revenue of the Sud dynasty will increase, and financially the state will become a powerful state. He took steps in safeguarding the interests of the peasants, as we have said. Care was also taken to protect the crops on the field at the time of wars. This is a very important point. Protection of the crop. See, all medieval kingdoms have been continuously expanding. Okay, so when the empire keeps expanding, crop protection becomes a very important aspect. It had to be protected from the invaders. It had to be protected from the oppressive officials also. The officials were also very oppressive. So if it is not protected from the wars, the oncoming wars, and if it is not protected from the oppressive officials, the farmers will suffer from an alienation from production. They will not get involved because it will not be profitable if it is not protected. If it is not protected, agriculture would not become profitable. A kind of feeling would emerge among the farming community that in course of a war, everything would be lost. Or in course of a corrupt official, they will have to pay excess. So these were some stringent measures that were taken by Sher Sud, which tried to systematize not only the revenue policy, not only the crop, but the officials, the bureaucrats, who were one major source of, they could be a positive source if they were, because administration was given into their hands. But if they were corrupt, they could also become a negative force. So the Iqtidars who were there played a very crucial role. See, we have said that the empire was divided into parganas and it was subdivided into sarkars. So when we are trying to understand the provincial administration, which was a replica almost of the central administration, I have also put up a portrait of Sher Sud, one of the most important rulers, who was instrumental in giving a very defined, clearly defined provincial administration in early medieval India. If you take the provincial administration into consideration, you have four important officials. You had the Shikdar, who was a military officer. You had the Amin, or the land revenue official. You had the Fotedar, or the treasurer. You had the Karkuns, or the accountants. See, if you just look at these officials, they could play a positive role and they could also play a negative role if they were corrupt. Another important factor for the provincial administration was that the central administration should have an effective control over the provincial administration. Otherwise, if land gets concentrated in their hands and revenue gets concentrated in their hands, you could expect, or the king can expect, regional revolts. So control over the provincial administration was a very important factor. Making them understand the line of identity with the central administration becomes very important. A king in medieval times becomes important only when he is able to synchronize three elements. One, his defense policy. Two, his central administration. Three, his provincial administration. Seshasur was a trendsetter in this particular perception of understanding the development of medieval Indian history of medieval Indian administration. He followed an expansionist policy. He gave a central administration. He also concentrated on the provincial administration. The sarkars were further subdivided into parganas, and each pargana had various officers. Sarkars had various officials. Central administration had various officials. So you have a bureaucracy of administrative setup coming from the central level to the provincial level to the sarkar level. So controlling them made or transformed, making them play an important contributory role for the development of state, makes a king a successful king. Otherwise, he will remain as an invader. Why I had said that Seshasur was important is basically because even from your examination point of view, or even in UPSC examinations, Seshasur happens to be a very important area of questioning, especially his central administration and provincial administration. The reason is because, as I've said earlier, he was a trendsetter. He was a forerunner. He was a trendsetter. He came up with a particular idea very clearly that unless or until you develop the state in terms of administrative structures, fiscal policy, and revenue policy, and make the state an economically powerful state, it cannot be a powerful state politically. So this was the cue, this was the idea which was taken by Akbar. Even Akbar had said very clearly in the medieval time, that is the reason when you take up Akbar, you have three systematic policies, which we will discuss when we deal with Akbar. You have the Rajput policy, you have the Hindu policy, and you also have the religious policy. Okay, so the idea of state, Seshasur very clearly had an idea of state. And here, his idea of state was linked to the idea of benevolence, the idea of transforming and developing the state. That is the reason I say he is completely different from the Delhi Sultanate Sultans. The Delhi Sultanate Sultans continuously had struggled to stay in power, and their army was not trained properly. And that is the reason you have 5 dynasties in that particular period, irrespective of the number of dynasties that were there in Delhi Sultanate period. If you take Alauddin Khilji and compare him with Seshasur, Alauddin Khilji also did not have an idea of state. That brings a lot of importance to Sesha and his administration in the medieval times. Continuing about other aspects of his administration, trade and commerce was another important factor on which he had focused. Till now, we have focused on his central and provincial administration and his idea of state. Okay, now we will focus on other aspects of his state policy. So the other aspects of state policy include trade and commerce, where he adopted number of administrative measures for the promotion of trade and commerce. Duty on the commodities was collected only at 2 places. This is very important. One at the place where they entered his empire, and then in the market where they were sold. So two places, when they were entering the empire and when they were being sold in the market. These are the two places where tax was collected. New roads were laid. I had shown you one map, one slide where you could see the trunk road, and on the trunk road, either side of the trunk roads, you have some kind of an urbanization. So when we are talking of trade and commerce, one of the most important aspect is the development of infrastructure, like road, sarais or rest houses on the highways. Because when a trader travels on the road with his produce, he expects some kind of protection from the state. And it becomes obligatory on the part of the state to give him his required protection. So this point was realized by Sher Suri. He not only constructed new roads, but he also constructed the sarais, and the merchants were well protected during their travels from one place to other to sell their products, finished products. If any merchant died in the travel, his property, which he was carrying with him, was guarded and returned to his family. This was a very important measure that was taken up by Sher Suri. All these measures, contributed for the development or the growth of trade during this particular period. See, at a later time, when we come down to the period of Akbar, Shah Jahan and Jahangir, we call it as a golden age. How does the age become golden age? Okay, that we'll be discussing. I'm just trying to give you an idea that this was this 5 years, 1540 to 45, where he ruled, a very important period, because he not only gave a definition in terms of the political definition in terms of the territorial limits, but he also gave a definition of what a benevolent state should be. What a benevolent state should be, unlike the Delhi Sultanate state. So you will have, if a series of rulers, for example, like unfortunately Sher Suri died very early, he had a very brief period. If he had continued for, like Akbar, if he had continued for a period of 50 to 25 or 30 years, probably Mughals would have been completely driven away from India and the Sood dynasty would have flourished. Okay, so after trade and commerce, we will also look into justice. How justice was done. The Sultan was the highest point of justice. Next to him was the Qazi. Okay, he was also an official. The highest judicial authority. Over Qazi, you had only the king. Below him, below him, you had Qazis at different levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And at the Pargana level, representing the Qazi, you had a Munsif. And his office was known as Munsifai Munsifan. Munsifai Munsifan. The point where justice was given. Okay. So this was a very important development. Judiciary going down to the provincial level. Okay. And below him, you had at the Sarkar level, you had a Shikdar Shikdaran. He was also given the authority of doing or delivering necessary justice in case of any kinds of disputes. Okay. In the pages of history, Sher Suri has been recorded as a very just ruler. Okay. He is recorded as a very just ruler. he decided that justice without any discrimination should be done. When you want to do, in case of any kind of disputes between anyone, there should not be any kind of a point of discrimination. He gave a lot of importance to this. Well, giving a lot of importance to this, he also punished the guilty very severely. Law was very strict, which means that law was very strict. And here, everyone was, he made everyone equal before law. Like in the modern times, we say that everyone is same for the Constitution of India. During the time of Sheshasur, everyone, whether rich, poor, without any kind of a gender or any kind of a discrimination, justice was given purely on the basis of the merit of the dispute, merit and nature of the dispute. We have seen the vast empire of Sheshasur. So, to control the administrative network, which was spread throughout the length and breadth of the country, he also had what you call the intelligence department. And this intelligence department, you had the spies. The spies who is to give information to the king about the activities of not only the bureaucrats, but the iqtadars and other kinds of officials. And this information was very critical for him to maintain law and order in the kingdom. So the espionage, or in the modern days, we can call the intelligence department. Okay, this was very strong. You have the intelligence department acting very strongly during this particular period, and this was very important. After that, we also have the village administration. The village administration was in the hands of hereditary officials. Hereditary means from father to son. The village administration was hereditary. Each and Pargana consisted of several villages. So you also have an administrative network at the village level. And the administration at the village level was hereditary. Even though it was hereditary, it was monitored very well. Okay, you had two important officials at the village level. One was the Chaukidar and the other one was the Patwari. The village officials assisted the higher officials in the collection of the revenue and in the maintenance of law and order. So you have the king maintaining law and order at the central level. You have the provincial officials maintaining law and order at the provincial level. At the village level, you have two important officials, namely Chaukidar and Patwari, who were entrusted the responsibility of maintaining law and order at this particular point, that is village. This is very important. Village administration is very important because that is the point from where you get the revenue in a feudal setup. As I have told you, he also had built many roads. I would like to mention a few of them. Road connecting Bengal with Punjab from Deccan to Lahore via Delhi and Agra. This was a very important road. I'll repeat, road connecting Bengal with Punjab. Bengal with Punjab from Deccan to Lahore via Delhi and Agra. This was one important road that was built by him. And the second important road that was built by him was road between Agra and Jodhpur. Agra and Jodhpur. The third one is between Lahore and Multan. Lahore, which is there in present Pakistan, and Multan. The third one was, sorry, the fourth one was Agra and Baharampur. So you have four important roads that was built by Sher Shah Suri in this particular period, which played important role. Now coming down to currency, Sher Shah Suri brought changes in the field of currency also. The currency system introduced by him lasted not only throughout the Mughal period, but continued up to the times of East India Company. This is a very, very important. You can see some of the coins that were minted by Sher Shah Suri. The silver rupee weighed about 100 grains, containing 175 grains of pure silver, formed the basis of modern Indian rupee. Some of the coins that you can see, this is the basis of Indian modern rupee. Apart from this, he also contributed for buildings, and some of the important buildings that you can mention are the Purana Killa, which was built by him, and his Mausoleum in Sasaram in Bihar was also built by him. So if you look at from different angles, from infrastructure, from coins, from administration, from village administration, different aspects of the state, you can find a stamp of Sher Shah Suri on him. In conclusion, we can say that Sher Shah Suri occupies a very important place in Indian history as one of the greatest rulers of India in medieval times. There is one book written by Worsley Haig. If you are interested in further reading, it's a very interesting book written by Worsley Haig, titled The Greatest Muslim Ruler of India. Generally, we think Akbar is one of the greatest rulers of medieval India. But this particular book by Worsley Haig, it makes a comparative study of different rulers in the medieval times and gives the credit of literally declaring that Sher Shah Suri was one of the greatest rulers of medieval India. So we have seen different aspects of Sher Shah Suri from the administrative point of view. As I had mentioned at the beginning of my lecture, Sher Shah Suri is very important from contributing to the growth of administration in medieval period. And he was a forerunner of Akbar. So in the next class, we will see how he loses his empire. And for a brief period, Humayun was there. And then we will take up Akbar. Thank you.